Well, good evening, good afternoon, good morning, good whatever time of day it is where you're listening to the Tattoo Teacher podcast. On today's episode, I have Heidi Ellis joining me. Now, Heidi's covered a range of experiences over her professional career, including digital content and production specialist, web journalist, content manager, news editor, and has worked for companies such as the Australian Broadcasting Company, the Courier Mail, Gold Coast Bulletin, Surf Pacific, and up until recently, she has been an English, Japanese, and film and media teacher. So, Heidi, welcome to the Tattooed Teacher podcast.
Hey, Phil. Thanks for having me. Really
Oh,
excited to be along.
You're very welcome. So great to chat with you tonight, or tonight for us anyway, here
Yes.
on the sunny Gold Coast. So,
Yes.
now you've done a bunch of stuff in your career. Now, you originally are from Bundaberg. Is that
Don't
correct?
hold that against me. Yes.
No,
Yes,
well,
I am.
look, I've got a very good mate who's a Bundy boy.
We
And
all
so,
do.
yeah, he says the same sort of thing. It's like people just go, you're a Bundy boy. So, look,
Mm.
I don't hold that against him. And he's also in the media sphere as well. So,
Oh, there you
yeah,
go.
they
Oh,
he
special.
works for Sprint Car Australia. He works with the supercars as a track announcer.
Oh,
He's done
amazing.
stints as DJs. So yeah, but
Yeah,
I mean, he is from Bundaberg, so I guess you guys
I
know
think,
you know how to talk up there.
yeah, we sure do. Don't you worry. We breed talkers. Surely it's got something to do with the rum in the bottles when we were babies, right?
Well, absolutely, the rum or the ginger beer. Yeah, maybe the ginger.
Yeah,
Who
I
knows?
prefer the ginger beer personally. I'm actually a really terrible Bundabergian and I cannot stand Bundaberg rum. It is the most revolting thing ever. That said, though, if you ever get the chance to try the Bundaberg rum liqueur, that is to die for. So, but that usual stuff, no, thank you.
Well, there go all our rugby fans.
Ah, sorry. Bye, guys.
Now you've done all this stuff. You've been in education. You've been in the news media.
Yeah.
But what has been your why behind that? So why media, and then why education?
That's an interesting question. And I think we have to rewind to my childhood nearly to answer this. So I learned when I was quite young that the way to get my dad's attention was to be interested in the same things that he was interested in. So my dad is a mechanic by trade, specifically works on classic minis. And as you know, I have a classic mini in my garage. So tick, one thing for me to talk to my dad about from childhood. And the other thing that my dad did was he was a videographer. So he used to actually go down to the Greyhound track in Bundaberg and he worked there videoing the Greyhound races. And so from primary school, actually, I started going to the track with my dad, and I would help him with the videoing. So originally, I would just sit around and eat hot chips because, that was a good time. And then he started teaching me how to edit the video. So he would come back over from having shot the race and he would hand me the tape and I would put it in and I would then run off the copies for customers who wanted to buy a tape of their dog winning or coming second or whatever. And my dad would stand around and he would chat to, whichever mate happened to be there at that time, while I ran the copies for him. And then we progressed to, I would actually shoot the video and dad would just sit down the bottom while I shot the video and I would come back over and I would run the copies for him. And, it was great. I got some free hot chips out of it. Occasionally might buy me a can of Coke, which was wonderful. Things were simple in the 90s, Phil. Like you could keep me very happy very easily. And as it happened, my, so the Channel 7 local news also used to come out to the greyhound racing because they would cover all the weekend sport. And obviously greyhound racing fell under that. And they saw this girl who was shooting video and went, hey, we need a camera operator. you want to come work for us?
Jeez.
And I went, sure, why not? Sounds like fun. So I went and started this weekend sport camera operator job. And at the time, I was actually studying education at uni. So I was in my first year of education, and I was determined I wanted to be a Japanese teacher because just before this, I'd gone and lived in Japan for a year. I'd won a scholarship, loved Japan, loved everything about it. What do you do with Japanese in Australia, though? Well, I suppose I'll just go be a Japanese teacher. I did my first year of that degree, and I came to the conclusion that I didn't really like young children. Um, so I'd done my prep in a primary school, and it was horrific. And I went, oh, I don't know about this, hey. And Channel 7 came and said, do you want to come work for us? And I went, yeah, why not? So I started this job, and it was so much fun getting to ask people questions, questions that nobody else could ask people with, like, without just being given a bizarre look and told to F off or something. So I was, this, I think I was 20 at the time, this 20-year-old girl running around Bundaberg, going to see the mayor, setting up the camera, having a chat, asking them all these questions. Like, this is fantastic. Why, like, I'm going to be a journalist. This sounds like fun. And that is why I decided to do journalism, because it sounded fun and you got to ask people questions. So I went and I switched my degree. I dropped all of my education subjects because I was doing a Bachelor of Arts, Bachelor of Education. I went, nah, forget this education thing. I'm just going to do journalism. And I did that, did quite well. As it turns out, I knew I could write from high school. I knew I was a relatively decent writer. I could sit down and write my assignment the night before and get a pretty damn good mark for it. So I'd always figured that I had some writing ability there. But this journalism kind of just made my writing skills come together. I remember writing a assignment and showing it to my then boyfriend. It's a very long time ago, not anyone you know. And he looks at this story and he said to me, so who wrote this? And I said, I did. I wrote it. He's like, what? You wrote this? Yeah, I wrote this. And he's like, oh, it's actually really good.
There's the encouragement that you needed.
Yeah, I know, right? My ex-boyfriend thought I could write a story. It's wonderful. So I guess my why behind journalism was I thought it was fun to ask people questions, which is now absolutely hilarious because I have come to the realization that I'm a massive introvert and I will actually avoid talking to people if I possibly can.
Well, thanks for coming on.
I know, right? I know. Not gonna lie, it was a confronting thing to think about, but yeah, no, I wanted to very much. So my why for journalism back in the day was that it sounded like fun, and then I got in and started making a career out of it, and it became apparent. I moved into digital production and I am very details oriented. I'm a bit of a perfectionist and a little bit of a nitpicker. I'm that person who can find the double space in the copy and I have to remove it because it does my head in looking at the little extra white space in there. So I kind of just found this thing that really allowed me to write in a way that felt good and tell stories that I thought were important. I've worked mainly on regional newspapers, so Bundaberg Newsmail was one of the mastheads that fell under my company's umbrella. So I worked on lots of little regional papers, and I have a real affinity, I think, with many of those regional areas. I feel like I belong to them and they belong to me, despite the fact that I've never even set foot in half of these towns. I have this bond with them. And I think something I've learned about myself over time is that I value that like community, and I value, um, you know, doing something that helps the world. And I think that that goes into my why as well, then for teaching, to do full circle and actually come back to your question. I think with teaching in the beginning, when I did start that BA BEd, my why was, well, I have to do something. I've got to go to uni. My parents want me to go to uni. I speak Japanese. I may as well become a Japanese teacher. And as I got further into my career, I'd moved out of journalism into marketing, and I'd always felt this pull to go back towards education, and I'd come to the conclusion that it's probably going to be better off in a high school setting. And I decided to do the graduate diploma in the very last year that it was offered. I jumped on the bandwagon right before they got rid of it. And it was kind of all right, in a couple of years when I don't want to do marketing anymore, when I'm feeling like I need a change, I'll go and I'll move into teaching. And that why was always wanting to help kids. And yes, I was teaching English and Japanese. I'm teaching languages, and Japanese is a subject that many kids won't necessarily feel is most necessary. English is the subject that they normally say they hate the most, so yay. But it came from a place of just wanting to help kids who might have been a little bit like me, who didn't necessarily know where they fitted in the world and what they should do with themselves. Not to necessarily help them to make a decision or to come to a conclusion of what it was that they should do, but more just to help them to become the person that they were destined to become or that they could become, and try to just soften that ride a little bit for them, help them be a safe person for them, and just help them through that journey. Because I don't know if you remember being a teenager, but it was brutal sometimes. It was
Oh,
really brutal.
yeah. I look back at some of it, and it's like, yeah, that was fun, but it's just like,
Mm-hmm.
man, to do that again, no way, no way.
Yeah, I would genuinely love to be able to go back for a day, go back to grade 11 specifically, because that was a good time, and there was no super nasty exams or anything. I would love to go back for a day and just to appreciate what I had for that day, just appreciate my friends and not worry about all of the other crummy stuff that happened. Um, just exist and soak that in and get that enjoyment out of it. But oh gosh, there were some other things that yeah, I'm right there with you. Would not like to go through.
No, that's brutal. It's brutal, but
And it
it
really
it
is.
sounds like that your part of your why for teaching anyway, is you want to create that safe
Mm.
environment for success for whatever that may be for that particular student, to get them
Yeah,
their point in the world,
yeah,
to allow them to fail in a safe way,
yes,
to
yes,
to learn from their mistakes, to
yeah.
become better at whatever they want to become better at.
Yeah, very much so. And I think I don't know that I necessarily knew that that was what I wanted to do when I started teaching. I think that I looked on it a little bit as, well, you've got to have a career and I may as well teach and I'll get to use Japanese and, I can write so I can do English and they pay me more every year. Sounds great, right? But
It
then
sounds good on paper.
it does. It sounds really good on paper. It's then the reality doesn't quite stack. But, you know, um, That very quickly became apparent to me, though, and it was interesting how quickly that smacked me in the face. And you go to uni and they talk about how you need to build rapport with students. I had never heard the words rapport so many times in my life as what I did in my graduate diploma. And I honestly, if I'd taken a shot every time I heard rapport, I may not be alive right now. It's it blew my mind to get in there because I don't know. I think you spend uni and beforehand being so concerned and so caught up in the content and making sure that everything's perfect. And I told you before, I'm a perfectionist, so there's still a little bit of a drive for that in behind there. But it was so crazy how quickly that got turned on its head for me, and I realized why I actually like why it was so important. And it's the thing I love the most about teaching, and it's the thing that I'm going to miss the most, and it's what really devastates me that I won't be doing. So
Yeah,
double-edged sword. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, and that's got to be tough.
It is. Um, you know, I don't relish that I have walked away from students where, you know, you can see that you're actually helping that kid. Like I'm not sitting here and like trying to big note myself or anything, but where you can see that you have an actual impact on that child's life. And this has happened to me a couple of times now where I've had to walk away. And the devastation that they show you is heartbreaking. It is just absolutely heartbreaking. And yeah, it's a hard road, that one. It's a really hard road. It's a difficult thing to straddle. Um, you want to make sure that you are actually helping this child in the way that you want to help them. But at the same time, if you don't do something for your own mental health, you're not going to be any help to them at all. Um, how does that work out?
It's a hard one, isn't it? It's a very hard one,
Yeah,
especially for and we'll get into this in a little bit. But it's very hard, especially for young teachers to
yep,
to
yep,
learn how to, because I mean, can when I started to compare to when you've started teaching, it's
yes,
a very different game.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. From COVID to, ChatGPT,
yep.
which I've heard you talking about quite a few times lately. So,
Yes, I do. Yeah. Hey, look, and we'll actually probably, hopefully, we'll have time to talk about that and
yeah,
journalism. So,
yes, yes, no worries.
but it sounds like you do have a passion for teaching,
Mm,
but unfortunately, the the system, the educational system in its current
mm.
state, um, just was not viable
Do,
for long term employment, for the
no,
whatever the pressures that were put on you. I
yeah,
shared you shared a very vulnerable post a little while ago. I shared it on my LinkedIn, and the response was phenomenal. To
yeah,
hear just the feedback from people, um, and just to go, you know, that's a horrible thing. That's a terrible thing. It's like, why do we keep something needs to be done? Hard conversations need to
yeah,
be pushed to people who can actually exact some change. We need to get to the decision makers, because there's too many amazing educators like yourself who have no choice other
mm,
than to walk out the door so that they can actually survive.
yeah. And it kind of did come to that point to me, for me. I think, over the last probably about the last 9 months to a year, the stress has. I think we underestimate just what stress does to us. So I got diagnosed. late last year with TMJ, which is essentially lockjaw. And
Wow.
I started waking up clenching in my sleep every night, which is apparently related to stress. So I now have, Phil, you should see it. It is so sexy. It is this bright purple occlusal splint that I have to shove on my upper teeth every night. And they look a bit like this. And Sam loves teasing me about it and asking me for a kiss when I've got it in. But I've actually just been at the osteopath this afternoon, with, all kinds of lovely things going on in my neck and shoulders. And I only met him for the first time last week, um, after I went for a massage, and my massage therapist went, "Oh, you are a mess. I think you need to go see an osteopath." So I went and saw this guy, and he says to me today, do you I have a lot of stress at work? Yep,
Yeah.
a little bit, just a little bit. He says, "Yeah, really, really tight through you and really got to work on like trying to reduce that." And I said, just had a job change, so here's hoping that might help a little bit. Yeah, we'll see. But I think we really underestimate what that actually does to us and the impact that it has on us. And when we are in that stress state, we can't actually be the best person that we can be for our students. Or even if we do somehow manage to get our brave face on and to spend that day at school really, really doing the damn best that we can, you then come home and you have zero tolerance for the people that you love the most who are inside your own house. You walk in and you're so overstimulated, you're so stressed out that the last thing you want to do is to actually interact with them. And that's really sad. That was an awful realization for me, that I was coming home and I was snappy and I wasn't getting out of that mood. And it, that really kind of highlighted to me, that there was something, quite wrong, and that I desperately needed to do something about it. And, at schools we talk about well-being. Oh, you've got to look after your well-being. You've got to make sure you disconnect. Uh-huh. What about all the work that you're putting on me? What about all those extra things that you're asking teachers to do every single week? It felt like, every second staff meeting, there was something new that we had to do, some extra thing that was being put on us. And it just takes you away from, and you'll know where this one comes from, your core business.
Oh, yeah. They
Your
like to
core
throw around
business.
terms, don't they? They like
Oh,
to mix stuff
yeah.
up to, yeah.
They, they love that one. But your core business of actually being a teacher. And to me, uh, being a teacher isn't necessarily about standing in front of a classroom and making sure that those kids hear every single little bit of content that was in that unit plan. Got to ram it all down their throats and make sure that they can regurgitate it in the exam. Being a teacher is about caring for our next generation. It's about helping our next generation to become, people who can actually contribute effectively to this world. And when I can't do the jobs that I need to do to enable me to do that, because you've got me doing something that doesn't actually relate to that, and then you overstress me because I then got to go and rush to get the other things ready, like it just it it takes us away from what we should be doing. It takes us away from what actually matters. The amount of times where the thing that I was asked to do is then never spoken of again, just disappears into the ether. Um, why did I do it? What was the point? Was there a point? Or was it just busy work, which we like to talk about in teaching as well?
Yeah. there's so much there that we're given. We're just there's plenty of put on that. Just do this little bit. It'll only take you 5 minutes. Just do this little bit. It'll
Yep.
only take you 5 minutes. And they're just little tasks that,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, in and of themselves, pretty easy to do. But
Yep.
when you are adding and adding and adding,
Mm-hmm.
it does become, because they don't
Mm-hmm.
remove anything. They don't
No.
take anything away from you, and they're
No.
still expecting you to work at this level and then step it up
Yep.
and then step it up.
Yep.
And
Yep.
yeah, I mean, I've been teaching for over 20 years now, so I've learnt, and I've had the opportunity that where teaching wasn't as stressful, where it wasn't
Mm.
as. I mean, there was always stresses, and there was always deadlines, and there was always things to do, but there didn't seem to be the requirements that are placed upon us now.
Yep. Yep. And I think I've seen lots of people talk about that, and I think it's really interesting. You were talking to one of your other guests. I can't remember which one right now because I've binged them all in the last few days. But you were talking to one of your other guests about how different, um, things have come into teaching over time. So, ChatGPT's come in, and we had laptop computers come in, and we had this come in, and we had that come in. And it's great. Yes, let's evolve education. Let's start to bring these new things in because our kids need to know how to use these for the real world, for their future. 100%. So we've had these changes happening for what happens for kids, but what we haven't changed is the teaching load.
Yeah.
So we are still putting the same teaching load on those teachers today, where we've got all of these extra things going in there. So we're evolving on one side, but we're refusing to evolve on the other side of the equation. And until we start to actually take that other side of the equation into consideration, I don't see how we can stem the flow of teachers out the door. We need to, in my opinion, we need to reduce class sizes and we need to reduce loads, because the complexity of many students that we have in our classrooms now, that can add to our admin. So you're looking at NCCD requirements. That's great. Don't get me wrong. I am 100% behind making sure that we're doing the adjustments for those kids because they deserve it. They absolutely deserve to be able to access their learning in a way that is targeted to them. But when I have got 29 children in my classroom and a good 7 of them require adjustments, and then I've got others who are QDP, how do I keep up with all of that and continue to extend that kid who's sitting on an A, who wants to do this and who wants to do that? How do I straddle all of that when I have 29 bodies in my room? It's I yes.
Yeah, there's it is, and it's one of those questions like how do we do it? And
Mm.
no one, as teachers, we go, well,
We
here's how
just do it.
we just do it. Here's how we'd like it to be done, and
Yeah.
if you could reduce it down even to 20 students,
Yes.
and get an aide in for to
Yeah.
help in these
Yep.
classes, but we know that that's not going to happen.
No. Well,
Um,
we're like the snake eating its tail,
yep.
because unfortunately we've got all these teachers leaving. The teachers leaving mean that we don't have the ability to reduce the class sizes because we don't have enough teachers just for the classes that we have. So the way that we stop them from leaving is to reduce their workload, but we can't reduce their workload because there's no teachers.
Yeah, it's a massive catch-22, isn't it?
It really is. It's a rock and a hard place. You know, I don't know how we fix it. And the what I'm noticing too is in our post-COVID world, oh, don't you love that catch one? in our post-COVID world, so many kids are now, we're looking to alternates. We've got kids who are school refusing. They don't want to come to school. In fact, they do better from home. When are we going to start to actually recognize that the model that we are using, that is how old now, doesn't work now? It's not just the teaching load, it is also just the entire model. The whole thing needs to be rethought. The whole thing needs to be pulled apart, re-examined, and then put back together with some really serious changes. But change is scary. And how do you bring in something like that across the board? Well, it's nearly impossible. We can't just go, we're going to finish today as normal, school as we've known it for the last 100 years, for example, and tomorrow we're going to start school 2.0.
Yeah, that
It's a tough one.
it's a massive issue, and you're right with school refusal, with online learning. We were told
Hmm.
students had to be in the classroom. That's the
Hmm.
best way to learn, be together. But we've discovered and the teachers around the world have done amazingly well to just pivot at a moment's notice, to turn everything online, to turn everything
Yep.
digital, to sit in front of a computer and try and teach 29 kids and try and, at
Yep.
least try and reach them, even just touch base. And then all of a sudden kids are going, if I can do it on the computer at home and I can do
Why
it
do
in
I
black
have to
and
put a
white,
uniform on and go to school?
I can wake up at 9 o'clock. I can do 20 minutes of work instead of 40 minutes because I'm not wasting time
Yep.
wandering around the school. I'm not
Yep.
wasting time. I'm not having my time wasted by other students who really don't want to
Yep.
learn. Um,
Yep.
and there's a huge. The statistics are crazy. I can't remember the percentages of on homeschooling. That is just
Mm.
across the globe. That is just going through the roof. And now the hybrid
Yep.
schooling, the online
Yep.
schools, are just are really excelling because they're reaching where the students are at today.
Yes. And isn't that the point of differentiation? Meeting students where they are at and allowing them to access learning on their own level,
Yeah,
maybe.
AV, and having that relationship with them.
Yeah, yeah. And it's funny. So I wasn't actually teaching at the start of 2020 when it all went pear-shaped. I'd been offered a job at the start of that year, and I actually, for some ridiculous reason, decided to turn it down. I decided to stay in the marketing job that I was in for a little bit longer. And it was quite a shocking realization when all of that went down. I thought, this could have been me. I could have been in the middle of this. I then started teaching halfway through 2020. So I started in the middle there. And the back half of 2020 was relatively normal.
Yeah,
But then in 2021, we had multiple times where we went offline again. And then the very start of 2022, when well, I believe we were actually working together at this point, um, all, all those years
yeah,
ago.
sounds about right.
And I had a brand new grade 7 English class. And I thought, oh my goodness, how on earth am I supposed to start this online? This, this is crazy. I've never laid eyes on these kids. I've never met them, and I need to start teaching them online. And I think it's funny. As a teacher, often fall back on, I suppose, my journalism experience and storytelling. And I find that storytelling is so powerful in reaching those kids who don't necessarily want to be there and aren't necessarily fully into what is going on in the classroom. Some of the boys in some of my English classes who have sat there with their heads on the desk and acted like they're not listening, who can then parrot something back to them, back to me from a story that I've told the class. It blows my mind because you take them on that journey and they actually get invested in it. And these little year 7 kids, they were adorable for starters. And it was funny. I was really concerned that we wouldn't have built that rapport over the Teams chat, but I got them in the classroom a few weeks later, and they was they were just stoked to be there. They were so excited to be there, and watching the joy in their faces. And yes, there was kids there who didn't engage whatsoever. They came on and they turned on their camera, and then they turned it back off again and they took off. So be it.
Yeah.
But so many of them, despite everything that was going on, just had that actual real desire to learn. And you met them where they were, you chatted to them where they were at, and it worked somehow. And some of them came into the classroom and they didn't necessarily, do any better, but they didn't necessarily do any worse. Some of them were much more engaged when we were online compared to what they were in the classroom. So it's really interesting. I think too, this generation, quite different to ours, are they're very immersed in the tech. They've grown up with it and they are much more, like I'm a millennial, so I'm supposedly a digital native. But I grew up in the 80s and 90s where we didn't have the connectivity that they have now. The connectivity that we have now is amazing. And why should we not be using this in education? Why are we shunning this? Why are we, as adults, we want to be connected. I want to have my phone in my pocket. I want to be able to check, my phone and see if something happened. I want to be able to continue my normal life. And, kids have that same drive because they have grown up with this. This is what they are used to. This is their normal. And, we tell them that they're not allowed to because that might distract them. But we don't get distracted, do we, Phil?
Not me. Never.
No, never. No idea what you're talking about. No. No.
No, nothing shiny over here.
No, just the halo around your head.
Absolutely. It sounds as though you're in such a hard place at the moment because you have this love for students and for teaching, but
Mm.
it's an environment that is just unsuitable for so many. And I guess you're probably probably days are going, yep, I've definitely made the right decision, and other days you're going, what have I done? Because so it must be really tough, and you're not the only one in this position, and that's why I really wanted
No.
to get you to chat with you, so that others could hear your story about that position that you're in, where you're just pulled multiple
Yeah.
ways, probably
Yeah.
daily, multiple times a
Yeah.
day. But you had to do it for your own sanity, for your own safety,
Yeah.
and for your family as well.
Yeah. Yeah. I think, unfortunately, as teachers, we've become a little bit conditioned to um, putting our own health to one side. So, oh, really don't feel very well today. But if I call in sick, it's going to take me 2 hours to come up with some class plans to leave. There's a 95% chance that the replacement teacher won't actually do them, or they'll just let the kids do nothing. But if I don't leave them, I'm going to get in trouble. So I'm going to need to spend 2 hours on it. It's just easier to go to work. I'll just go in. I'll just put on, I'll just put on a brave face and I'll just run with it. And I think sometimes too, and This does depend on the school, I will say. But in some schools, in some environments, I've had messages given to me, not necessarily in as many words, but the underlying message was work is the most important thing. You are here to, to serve. You need to make sure that you don't drop the ball because the most important thing is, getting everything done. And if that means that you have to not do what you want to do, then that's a little bit of too bad, so sad because it's your job to do this kind of thing.
Yeah.
And there's that mentality of, oh, well, you chose this career because you want to serve, so you better serve. And that that expectation weighs very heavily on you. And I I think I think for me, because I have spent so long out in the outside world, I really only spent 4 years in teaching, and I'd done 15 years in journalism and marketing before that. For me, coming in, I was very aware of the need to set some boundaries. And I was very adamant that I was going to do that right from the very beginning. So I did try very hard to set those boundaries. I was showing up at 7 o'clock every morning because in an office job, I would work 7 till 3 or 8 till 4 or 9 till 5. So for me, I was happy to show up at 7 o'clock and not finish until 3:30. And that was fine. I would put in that extra. But when that's not enough and you're being asked to sacrifice your own downtime above and beyond that and not be paid for it, let alone even be thanked for it half the time, that that to me was it was just taking it too far. It was pushing it too much, and you have to remind yourself sometimes that if I died tomorrow, they would replace me. They would find another teacher. But if I died tomorrow, my family isn't going to be able to replace me. That's,
That's the reality. That's the
yeah,
harsh reality. Yeah. I mean, it's what it and it's 100% true. I mean, for myself, I had quite a traumatic motorcycle accident when I was in Sydney. Just started a new job, and then I was like 4 days into a brand new job, and then I was gone for 16 weeks,
oh gosh,
and so it was just like, but school kept on going.
yeah,
The kids kept on, the classes kept on, yeah, it was inconvenient for them, but
yeah,
it kept on going. But I needed to, I had no say in the matter. I was off. And but again,
yeah,
you were saying that, you're talking about pushing yourself. Yeah, we actually sacrifice ourselves. It's just easier to go back into work. And I did that. I went back to work too soon
oh
because
no,
I thought that's what I had to do, and that's
yeah,
what I wanted to do, and that led to a whole range of repercussions that have taken a long time to get through. And I mean, I'll always be suffering from a range of things, and that's a chat for
mm,
another day, that's for sure. But
mm,
it comes down to your own personal well-being, your own mental illness, your own mental, yeah, well, I've got mental illness, but after a motorcycle accident, just the short story is anxiety and PTSD.
yeah,
um, but my own mental well-being and physical well-being, I had to reevaluate what I actually did. And yeah, it makes it hard when, and I can hear it in your voice and the way you're talking, that you would love to be in a classroom, you would love to be teaching, but it is, again, there's too many things that have forced not only you, but thousands of others,
yeah,
into a position where it's just like, no, I come first, my family comes first, and I'm
Yeah.
sorry.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a hard decision to make. And, you know, I'm under no illusions that I'm not the first. I'm not the only one who's grappled with the idea. I just happen to be the one that knows you. But I just feel, I think I said this to you earlier, I just felt a real drive that I had a little bit of a duty to actually say something here because of the two sides of the fence that I straddle. So I've been, you know, in the teacher's shoes, and I've been in, you know, the media's shoes, and I I know that the media can be very, very powerful. Words can be very, very powerful. And we need to start to talk about this problem and the realities of it. We've skirted around it. We've talked about you know, teachers leaving. There's headlines about it frequently, but nobody is actually doing anything. Nobody has actually stepped up and said, you know what? We actually need to listen and we need to make a change. I have done so many surveys and I have never once, never seen anything change based on the feedback that they get from teachers. In fact, I've actually had people say, oh, well, that's a nice idea, but we can't do that. So you'll have to come up with something realistic.
Yeah. I tell you what, Heidi, it sounds like to me, and that you're in a fantastic position, and you have, through a whole range of experiences, got the tools. You definitely have the skills in journalism, in being able to write, being able to communicate effectively. I think, this might be, and as hard as it was, this might be an opportunity to be one of the key voices to help
Mm.
teachers, to move into that area of, somewhere in the media, or to have a voice that you can go, well, hey, I'm just a teacher,
Yeah,
or I was just a teacher, and I love my job, but I can't do it.
yeah,
We need to do some change, and I think, I look, you're still recovering. You've just stepped out of the classroom.
yeah.
So you've got probably a lot of healing to do before you can even think about what your next step might be. Um,
Oh no, I start next week.
Good on you. So what are you stepping into?
I am stepping into an editor role, and I'll be doing some marketing for them as well. So for a mining news publication called mining.com.au. So
Oh, excellent. Well, congratulations.
thank you.
Congratulations.
Excited about it. When I went and had a chat with them, it was kind of, you know, everything we talked about was stuff that I know I'm really good at. Sorry to toot my own horn there, but I think I was excited at the thought of going back to doing something that, you know, it doesn't have all the variables. It doesn't have the kid that's just throwing up on their exam paper. Except it wasn't really throwing up, she pretended.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
we've all got some stories, that's for sure.
Oh, yeah.
And and
I'm
and I guess at the end of the day, you can close your laptop and your workday's over. You don't
yes,
have that emotional
yes,
drain on you
no.
that we all have as educators.
No, although, you know, in classic teacher style, I have actually just said yes to tutoring um, a girl who is a former student of mine. Her mum reached out and said, hey, is there any chance you might be willing to tutor? So, you know, still gonna dabble my toe a little bit, I suppose.
I don't think there's any. I don't think there ever will be an ex-teacher. I think we're always going to be teachers.
Yep,
So
yep,
we might not be in the classroom,
yep,
but
yep, 100%, you know. we might not be up there with the PowerPoint trying to get the kid down the back to stop watching basketball and actually listen to me. But yeah, I don't think I don't. I agree with you. I don't think it's actually possible to walk away from something like that when you have been in the midst of that and you can see how important it is. Um, you never stop wanting to help. You never stop wanting to give. You never stop wanting to see that kid do better. So
Yeah.
yeah,
Oh, that's awesome. That's so good. It's great that you've got another job and you can have a bit of a breather.
yeah,
It's sad that you're not in the classroom,
mm.
but who knows? Maybe one day um, there'll be a shift in the education, and who knows what's going to happen in the time. But
Yeah,
look, we have covered some stuff that I think everyone needed to hear, and it's great to get that actual we that personal story
mm.
that I love teaching, but I can't be at a school. I love students, but the school system is destroying staff and students.
It
We
is.
need to do something. So
Yeah,
so we've gone we've covered some pretty deep topics there, and I thank you for your time.
no
But
worries.
just before we finish up, just a couple of questions to finish up. A little, yeah, we'll just finish, we'll just land this plane on a bit of fun.
No
Um,
worries.
Now, you mentioned before that you like Bundy liqueur,
Oh,
but
yes.
what across the board, I always ask every one of my guests, what's your favourite drink?
One of my favorite drinks. See, like some of your other guests, I can't help but instantaneously go to thinking of alcohol here. Is this a byproduct of being both a journalist and a teacher? I don't know.
Or Australian, or from Bundy, or
Yeah, well, there's a possibility. Look, I think I can't answer this question with just one because it's going to depend on what mood I'm in.
absolutely
Um, so it's either going to be Japanese umeshu, which is plum wine. It's not really a wine though, it's a plum liqueur. Or it's going to be a gin and tonic. Or if I don't actually want it to just put me to sleep 10 minutes later, an espresso martini.
nice, nice. Well, look, hey, next time we meet up, we might have all three.
Sounds good. So let's pencil it in, Phil.
For sure, for sure. Now, you've talked about a lot of challenges that you've gone through. What's a challenge that you'd like to throw out there for the people listening?
Oh, Phil, you've thrown me a curveball. I've like taken note of the questions you've asked every other guest and prepared myself for them. Challenge I want to put to everybody else out there. Oh man, you stumped me. Um, can you give me an example? What would your answer to this question be?
Mine would be it'd be something to do. What can you do to help the education system? What can you
Yeah,
do?
well,
What can you
so,
do for teachers, or something? How can you make the podcast even better?
ooh, my challenge to listeners. If you too believe that we need to make change to the education system, please start speaking up about it. Say something. Email someone. I'm a terrible journalist right now and I can't tell you who it should be, but I'm sure there's someone that we can email and say, you need to start to actually listen here. So I guess that's my challenge to listeners is if you feel strongly about something, use your voice. Speak up. Tell someone who might be able to do something about it. Yeah.
Excellent. Now, do you have a favorite quote or mantra that's stuck with you over the years?
Favorite quote or mantra? Phil, you've given me all different questions.
Well, I like to mix it up here on the podcast.
Favorite quote or mantra? Oh, yes. Something that I pull this one out in job interviews actually. Um, the only thing that, sorry, gotta get my wording right. Um, the one thing that never changes is that everything will change.
Yep.
Always. So I think our world is constantly evolving. We need to be ready to evolve with it. Can I just say, just shameless millennial and below plug here, actually Gen X as well. Good job to you guys too. Um, I love how good we are at accepting change. We're really damn good at it. Like, let's keep that up, please, guys. Let's continue to embrace the new. Yes, sometimes it can be scary, but our world will continue to change. There's things that we take as normal today that 50 years ago were, you know,
Yep.
so let's just, yeah, the one thing that never changes is that everything changes. Roll with it and just, you know, be the best that you can be and do what's best for everybody else.
That's brilliant. Now, it wouldn't be the Tattoo Teacher podcast if I didn't ask you. Now, this is a question that you will know: is do you have any tattoos?
Still, I am a total clean skin. To explain why, I actually get keloid scars. So, um, if I was to get a tattoo, there is a good chance that I would end up with a pretty horrific scar because of it. And as such, I have been too terrified to get one.
No, that's fair enough. That's fair enough. And I would say because you're a perfectionist, you'd be like you'd be constantly evaluating and going, oh.
Like it's not quite, yeah, we won't talk about the cupboard in my kitchen that's not quite straight. That
Oh,
drives me nuts.
well. Hey, you've got a week off.
I do. I've
You
been
can get that
cleaning madly.
kitchen covered straight.
Yes.
Now, lastly but not least, if someone wants to get in contact with you, where can they go? What's the best way to reach
Yeah,
out?
absolutely. Probably easiest on a professional level would be to come and find me on LinkedIn. So Heidi Ellis. I don't necessarily use that platform as much as I could. My excuse is I've been too busy trying to do all the admin that schools want me to do.
Yeah, no, that's fair enough.
Watch your
That's fair enough.
space.
Hey, well, I'll share your profile in the show notes so people can reach out if they want to.
Amazing. Thanks, Phil.
But Heidi, thank you so much for your time. Thank you for your just being so vulnerable and honest. It was a tough ask, and when I reached out to you, I wasn't 100% certain that you go
Oh,
yes.
really? Did you think I'd say
Well,
no?
well,
You
just
know, I'm an introvert.
well, you've got that, but I'll say it's a hard thing. You're still
Yeah.
in the midst of the trauma that is
Mm.
and the grief of leaving a job that you love. So
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
definitely thank you for
No,
it, and yeah, really appreciate it. And we'll have
thank
to catch
you.
up and have an espresso martini soon.
Sounds good. I'll bring the Umeshu as well.
Hey, sounds like a plan. Well, Heidi, thank you so much. You have a wonderful evening,
Yeah, you too. Thanks, Phil.
and we'll talk again soon.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to the Tattoo Teacher podcast. I hope you enjoyed the conversation and found it insightful. If you like what you heard, please subscribe, leave a review, and share with your network. Special thanks to DJ Fruit Salad for the music. You can find more of his work on Instagram at DJ Fruit Salad Official. Thanks again for listening, and I hope to see you in the next episode. Stay cool, be blessed.